To start off this afternoon's session, we've got a talk by Barbara and Eileen, who are from, who's a committee member and a trustee of the Oxfordshire Badger Group, and they're going to provide us an update on the group's core activities and roles, and will tell us about 2 new developments for the group. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the post-lunch slot. And I hope we're going to keep you entertained for the next 20 minutes. Thanks very much for the introduction as to who we are. I'm just going to do a few minutes update on some of our activities because it's been about 3 years since I last stood in front of a TVERT conference, and it's delightful to be back. It's lovely to see you all. In that time, we've had some pretty exciting new developments, but I wanted to update you on some of the key things that are happening for us at the moment, both seasonally and with a little bit of a look back as to how things have been in the last 3 years. So we are a small, very active group of volunteers. Oxfordshire Badger Group is now a charity. We've been so for the last 3 years. We're affiliated to the National Badger Trust, who do a lot of lobbying, and obviously badgers are a protected species, ensuring that protection, because persecution, baiting and activities which are illegal in terms of disturbing live badgers and the sets in which they live on, they carry on, particularly in a county which is blessed with a lot of badgers, such as ours in Oxfordshire. And this relates to Leslie's talk on the geology, but it all combines, as we know. So we're dedicated to both protecting but also promoting understanding of this very interesting species through advice and through education. The biggest project that we have developed in most recent years is our vaccination project against bovine tuberculosis, and I'll return to that in a moment. So the update today covers the first 3 things: rescues, reportings and RTAs, which again are all interconnected, vaccination, outreach education and Hutchkins COPs. So the picture that's on the screen there is from the Badger Trust's most recent campaign, which is encouraging people who use the roads, drivers of all kinds of vehicles, to be very aware of wildlife. This is the time of year when female badgers will have cubs in their sets, and female badgers, they can get pregnant at any time through the year, but the embryo is delayed in planting until the autumn, so that they all give birth between late December and early February. So at this point in the year, if a badger's killed on the roads, then we would like to know about it so that we can go out and check that body. And if it's a lactating female, we can try to take steps to help any dependent unweaned cubs that are in the set. Once the cubs are weaned, it gets slightly easier for us to arrange to rescue them. But it's really, really important. And one of my key messages to you this afternoon is, if you do see a dead badger on the roads in Oxfordshire, please report it to us. We will then take steps to go out and to try and make sure that, firstly, if that badger isn't dead, we can rescue it. And secondly, if it is dead, we can look at where the nearest set is and take steps where appropriate to try and help the cubs. So our rescue teams cover the whole of Oxfordshire. They also go outside the county boundaries where needed and when required to. We have 2 rescues that have happened this week, one that Eileen was involved with, which was actually in Berkshire. So the colleagues from Berkshire who are with us today, please bear in mind, if you see badgers, let your local group know. The Binfield Badger Group work closely with us, and indeed when they've got a rescue that they can't quite help with the resources that they've got, they call on us and we come down and help if we can. So it also is a busy time for badgers. Not only are there cubs underground, but also fighting over territory is quite common at this time of year. Young adult males that got kicked out when the babies were born are looking for new territories, and as they move across other people's clan areas, they're likely to get attacked. And again, this results in badgers being seen live in the middle of the day, often holed up in somebody's garden with bad bite wounds. And infected bite wounds are often a cause of death. But if we can get to them and rescue them, then we can get them to a wildlife hospital, they'll receive appropriate treatment, and it may not result in a death. Every record counts, and it may save a life. So I understand that this isn't an optimum time for checking on our website. We've been very busy doing other things this afternoon, but our presentation will be made available after today so that you can check on our website and see what the current information is about reporting either a dead badger that you've seen or a live badger who needs our help. We'll move on quickly to vaccination. So this project began in 2018 and has grown and grown and grown since then. And we're about to start our busiest year ever in about 6 weeks' time. So Eileen and I are both very much involved in vaccination. And to summarise, it's part of the government's programme to try and eradicate bovine tuberculosis amongst the population of cattle and wildlife. Badgers can be vaccinated with the same vaccine that humans have against this disease. It involves quite a lot of work, both bureaucratically behind the scenes. This is a government initiative, therefore the bureaucracy and the paperwork is enormous. The arranging of volunteers, we started off with 4, we've now got well over 40, and we're covering sites across the whole of the county. And we're wholly unpaid. Everybody gives their time, their fuel for absolutely nothing. We're funded through small donations from grants such as the Badger Trust, which is the overseeing charity of the local badger groups, and also mostly through crowdfunding. It's quite an expensive business, actually. Each vaccine costs on average £40 per vial every year. So it's something which does require about £5,000 a year to actually deliver. This next slide has got a huge amount of information about why we're doing it and how we're doing it, which I won't go into to you now because we usually run whole days on exactly that. But essentially, if you'd like to get involved and go out for long walks in woods and fields on areas of private land that you otherwise wouldn't get to see, and you enjoy walking through mud, maybe carrying cages, handling peanuts, and you might want to see live, healthy badgers in their natural environment, where all we do is get them to go into a cage overnight, vaccinate them as soon as the sun rises, and let them run free afterwards, whilst marking them so that if we catch them the next day, we don't vaccinate them a second time. But we always would be really, really happy to have more volunteers join us. So if you'd like to get involved, this is how. And also, if you've got any ideas about how we could fundraise more, that would always be great to hear as well. One thing I would say about vaccination is you do need to be an Oxfordshire Badger Group member. It costs £12 a year. You get lots of little other perks for being a member, but you do have to be covered by our insurance. So that's how we would ask you to do that. Okay, I'm now going to hand over to Eileen for some more aspects of what it is that we do.
Everyone's deafened online.
Okay, thank you. Right, hello everyone. Thank you to Henrietta and the team for inviting us and giving us this time slot. My absolute favourite creature. I'm going to tell you about what's new really for Oxfordshire Badger Group, and it's a bit of an update, but before I do that, it's Saturday, it's quite sunny out there now, and for me there's always something nice to have on a Saturday, and that's a particular stripy mammal. Now, I'm sure you can remember the long, hot, dry spell in the summer. Animals generally were really desperate. Badgers were really struggling to find their favourite food, which is earthworms. The earthworms had gone down deep. The water that is around the countryside, the brook at the bottom of our garden, was absolutely bone dry. It was like a pathway all summer. So I decided that I would put out peanuts, and I would certainly supply water during that dry spell. Not something we perhaps recommend doing normally, but this was badgers in extremis. And I was getting a couple of badgers every single night. So if you indulge me, if the video works, this is my garden. Oh, it's working. There we are, found the peanuts, and there's actually a big water trough ahead of her there.
It's a bit hard to see, but I think it was a female, and I think she'd had cubs the year before. So that's my sunny Saturday and my happy moment. So thank you for indulging me. So the things that I'm going to talk about: education and outreach, and Hutchcomb's Copse. And last year we ran our very first conference, Every Badger Counts, which I think absolutely said what we meant. We had the most fantastic speakers. We had great delegates. We had a fabulous venue out at Farm Ed, great lunch. The whole thing was just wonderful. And we all had a really great time. I hope we'll do it again. We're not this year. You'll know it's a huge amount of work. But that was one of our first outreach activities. Next one I want to mention to you is schools. We've always been willing to go out to schools and groups and give talks. But this last year and into this year, we decided to put a little bit more of a structure around it and a programme. And what it comprised was going to primary schools mainly and doing what we called a badger assembly, which sounds quite funny. We'd have sort of 50 primary school age children there. It would be their usual school assembly time. They'd get started and then they'd give us half an hour. And we'd go along with our taxidermy badger, a skull, whatever else badgery we had to hand, and give them a slide presentation. And I have to say, the enthusiasm from the children was absolutely amazing. They were so engaged, they had so many questions, and quite a number of them had seen badgers. And it wasn't just dead ones, they did report seeing live ones. And of course, they all wanted to tell their stories. So the half hour became quite a strain. And then nursery and reception, I would take in the taxidermy badger still, and we'd all sit round and talk about the features of the badger, you know, tiny eyes, small ears, big sharp claws, very sensitive noses. And then we've got a story time and lots of books out there you can use. If any of you have small children or grandchildren or whatever, this is a really great book. It's Pete the Badger, and he decides he wants to tidy the wood that he lives in. So he starts off, he's grooming the fox, he's washing the birds' beaks, he's tidying up all the twigs and things, and then, heaven help us, it's autumn and all the leaves come down. So he gets very upset by that, gets them all scraped up into a huge pile of not very eco-friendly plastic sacks, and then decides that actually he probably needs to concrete the ground, and he pulls up all the trees. So that night, when he goes to bed, he can't find his bed. His set is buried under concrete, of all things. So he spends the night absolutely wonderfully in here in a concrete mixer. And I think he has a really bad night's sleep because there he is in his concrete mixer. Because the very next day, he realizes he's made one hell of a mistake. And he gets all his friends in the woods together and they put it back to normal. I don't know how he managed to get the concrete up, it doesn't tell you. And he seems to have replanted all the huge mature trees. So good thing, but really great book to, you know, to read in a very short time. Pass that to you if I may. Thank you. So the reason this started was you probably, particularly if you're Oxfordshire, you've heard of Luna the White Badger in Iffley and the campaign to save her set because the field where her clan lives is going to be developed on, going to be housing, and her set will be closed. So we were asked to get involved as a badger group, and we went out to schools to help educate. But this is Luna, so called because of her colour. There she is. Normal badger behaviour. All play is rough and tough and not something I would want to be party to. But it's rehearsing for adulthood. Whoops, someone goes down a hole, which is very common. And she's about a year old there. So she's being tracked with multiple cameras by a colleague of ours, and her every move is watched. So we know quite a lot about her, except because we don't see her in daylight, we don't know if she's an albino, pure white with pink eyes, or leucistic, which has got some vestige of the markings of a badger on her body, and she's got dark eyes. I think she's leucistic, but we don't know for sure. So she's the young lady that started it all. And these are shown with permission of the parents and the school. So in there, you can just about see a taxidermy badger being cuddled to extinction almost. I was just amazed at how much the children were keen to engage and touch and stroke. They just loved the badger. It's fabulous. And also, when you take a skull into a primary school, what you have to watch out is you may or may not know, a badger's skull is really strongly linked, but the children want to get it and they want to get their hands in there and do this with it. And if you have a badger skull, it's very precious, so you have to really manage how they handle it. But they've been great, absolutely lovely. It's tidy. It's by Emily Gravitt. So the other thing to update you on is Hutchcomb's Copse. Late summer last year, we were given a unique opportunity to purchase a copse, a woodland. It's just over 2 acres and it's ancient and semi-ancient woodland. And it's in Oxford. It's surrounded by housing on a couple of sides, so it's a real green oasis. It's unmanaged, unrestored, undisturbed, no public access, no public footpaths, and amazingly, Oxfordshire Badger Group now owns it and is frantically trying to raise money. You won't be surprised. Just a few shots, really. We have some very old oaks, and I've measured the girth, and I think the oldest one is about 135 years old. I really need more advice about how you interpret what you see in the canopy, the dead wood, the holes, the crevices, etc. But at that age, you know, Queen Victoria would have been on the throne. She'd have had Gladstone and Cecil as her prime ministers, and football had just been made professional. Amazing. And of course, the trees, as well as crevices and holes in the top, we've also got wonderful things at the bottom of them. We also have a small glade or meadow with lots of tussocky grass, surrounded by brambles. We're not planning on changing any of this. We might put in a couple of native trees just to increase the biodiversity, but it's going to be as it is. And we know we've got voles in there. And hopefully later this year, we'll know a lot more. And I'd like to take the liberty of passing around some paperwork here. We would love to set up a recording community specifically for the copse. And we need specialists. You know, we know badgers quite well, but there's not a lot of other creatures that we know very much about. We're going to get a tier 1 baseline ecological survey. That's hopefully going to be in April. And we'll probably do another one towards July time to pick up some of the flora. But if anyone would like to get involved and feel they have a specialism that they can use with us, I'd be grateful if you'd sign the paperwork and let us know. That would be wonderful. So we have fallen wood, which is absolutely staying in place, decaying. I think we've got a squirrel having chopped a hazelnut on this first one, and I need Bob's advice about the next one. I'm sort of hoping it might be a mouse. It could perhaps be an immature squirrel. Don't know. Sorry. That side, yeah. 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 Hurrah. We also have foraging signs. We have muntjac and roe deer, and you can see the deer have grazed it up to a level. I can't remember the height of this. I've got a feeling it might be muntjac, but I would want to know the height probably. And we have indicator plants, dog's mercury, ancient woodland, and we have these really ferocious beasts, nettles, growing up like blazes now. We're going to keep them. That's what they're there for, to feed everything. But yeah, they make our life tough when we go in. So as I've said, we're just starting out. We really need specialist knowledge and skills. If you can help us, we'd love for you to let us know. And just thanks for the photos that we've got. That's it. Thank you very much.